Most people think confidence is about how you feel. Feeling brave, feeling certain, feeling ready. And they're nice, but it's not where true confidence is built. True confidence is built much deeper than that. It's built in the story you keep telling yourself about who you are, and the labels you carry, and the identity you repeat all day long. And you attach meaning to your mistakes and your strengths and your place in the world and what you believe you are or aren't capable of. And in this episode of Let's Talk Confidence, we're going to unpack all of that. We're going to unpack the hidden story underneath your life, how it shapes the way that you lead, love, work, earn, and how to start changing it properly. Welcome to Let's Talk Confidence, the first and last place you need to go to build long-lasting confidence. I'm your host and coach, Josh Sutton. It's great to be with you. Please do give this podcast a follow, drop a quick review, share this episode with someone who you know always talks down to themselves. It helps us grow, helps us to build long-lasting confidence in more people. All right, let's dive in. I want to start with something simple but really important. You do not act purely from facts. You act from story. Two people can have the exact same opportunity in front of them and respond in completely different ways, not because one is more objectively capable, but because the story in their head is different. One person sees a challenge and thinks this is a chance to grow. And the other sees the same challenge and thinks this is it. This is where I get found out. One person gets feedback and thinks, that was really useful, that was. I can use that to improve. And the other gets the same kind of feedback and thinks, there it is again, proof I'm not enough. The event is rarely the whole thing. The meaning is the thing. Life is 5% event and 95% story attached to the event. Meaning comes from the story you've built about yourself over the years. This is why some people can be really, really talented and still hesitate all the time. It's why some people can be praised and still doubt themselves. It's why some people keep themselves really small, even if they're desperate for more. It might not make sense. They're not just dealing with circumstances. They are dealing with identity, with narrative. They're dealing with the internal private story underneath that changes everything. And if you don't understand that story, you'll keep trying to fix your confidence at the surface level whilst the roots stay exactly the same. Let me explain what I mean by story. I'm talking about the repeated lines in your head that start to sound like the truth because you've heard them so many times. I'm not a natural leader. I'm too emotional. I always mess things up. I'm not good with conflicts. I'm awkward. I'm behind. I'm not the kind of person who speaks up. I'm not enough. These things sound like casual observations, but they're not. They are stories. They are interpretations. They are old conclusions you reached at some point or that were given to you, and then you kept repeating them until they just sounded normal and became part of your very identity. And once something becomes part of your identity, you really stop questioning it. You start organising your whole life around it, in fact. If your story is I'm not a confident leader, you won't just feel nervous in meetings, you'll hold back. You'll do things like over-explain, delay decisions, avoid hard conversations, and then use all of that behaviour as more evidence that, see, you're not a confident leader. You find what you seek. If your story is I'm not good with relationships, you'll avoid vulnerability, you'll second guess yourself, people please, you'll shut down when things get really tense and then tell yourself in the same kind of way, look, see, this is why relationships just don't work out for me. If your story is I'm not someone who earns well, guess what's going to happen? You'll undercharge, you'll stay too long in the same role, you'll avoid negotiation, you'll really hesitate to put yourself out there and put yourself forward. And then you'll say the same thing. You'll say, see, I knew it. Wasn't built for that kind of level. The story creates the behaviour. The behaviour creates evidence and the evidence strengthens the story. This is why this matters so much, because until you interrupt that loop, your life will keep matching the narrative that you already believe, whether you realize it or not. It's why also confidence, it's not built by random motivation. Motivation gives you a little lift, but the narrative gives you life. Your story determines really what you attempt, what you tolerate, what you think you deserve, what you go for, the opportunities you say yes or no to, what you believe is possible. It affects how you lead, how you parent, how you love, how you earn. It affects the rooms that you decide to walk into or avoid, whether you shrink or take up the space. It affects whether you ask for more money or just quietly hope that somebody notices your hard work. It affects whether you speak in that meeting or let someone less capable run with the idea because you talked yourself out of it based on the story in your head. The story is everywhere, and it works in both the positive and the negative. It's why I keep coming back to it. Because most people are not struggling with a lack of skill or a lack of tools or ambition. They're struggling with an identity that will not let them use all this good stuff to improve the quality of their life. Imagine someone in leadership, for example, whose story is, I have to get everything right to be respected. Quite a common thing for leaders to think subconsciously. So what happens if they were to think that? Well, do things like over-prepare, avoid delegation because other people might do it wrong, struggle to make decisions unless they're certain, they hate being challenged, they replay mistakes for days, they get exhausted. Now, they probably look competent from the outside, but inside, they're just running on pressure and fear. Now imagine someone whose story is, I can handle being wrong and still be valuable. That person is calmer. They decide faster, recover quicker, listen better. They don't fall apart when things go wrong. Same job, different story, different quality of life. Or take money. If your story is, people like me don't earn that kind of money, or I need to prove myself for years before I can charge that much, you will sabotage your earning potential without even realizing it. You'll act like someone asking for permission rather than someone who's going out into the world and creating value. You'll wait until you feel ready. You'll make yourself smaller in negotiations. You'll shrink back. You'll confuse humility with underpricing. But then you'll call it realism. But it's not realism. It is narrative. It's story. And until you challenge it, your income will keep being capped by your identity. So how do you actually examine the story that you're telling yourself? Well, first, you have to stop looking only at your thoughts. Look at your patterns. Your patterns will tell you the story far more honestly than the surface thinking ever will. Where do you repeatedly hesitate? Where do you hold yourself back? Where do you keep getting triggered? Where do you keep saying yes when you actually mean no? Where do you keep getting stuck? Where do you keep playing smaller than what you should? Your repeated behaviour is usually the clearest clue to your hidden narrative. If you keep avoiding conflicts, there's probably a story about rejection or safety or being a bad person if you upset someone. If you keep undercharging, there's quite likely a story there about self-worth, being too much or not wanting to be judged. If you keep shrinking in groups, there's probably a story there underlying about not belonging, not being interesting, not having anything fun to say, or not really having a right to take up the space. So instead of only asking, what am I doing? Ask, what would I have to believe about myself for this behaviour to make sense? That question cuts through a lot of the noise, a lot of the nonsense. Let's say you keep apologising in meetings. What would I have to believe about myself for that to make sense? Maybe the answer is, I believe my presence is inconvenience. Or I believe I really need to soften what I bring to be accepted. Let's say you keep putting off applying for bigger roles. What would you have to believe about yourself there? Maybe it's, I believe I'm not the kind of person they choose. Or I believe if I go for more and don't get it, it proves that I'm not enough. These are just examples of how this story might play out. And it's where the real work starts. Not in pretending to be positive, but in getting brutally honest about the story underneath your behaviour. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is to identify the labels that you keep using. People are so careless with labels, and then they wonder why their confidence stays low. They'll say things like, I'm an overthinker, or I'm a bit awkward, or I'm not great with money. Really casually in conversation, people slip it in, listen out for it, do it all the time. Things like, I'm not a people person, I always sabotage myself. And look, the more you say those things, the more your brain treats them like instructions. I'm being very careful about saying them to myself now. Because labels are not harmless. They will dictate your behaviour. If you call yourself indecisive, you will be more indecisive. You will hesitate more. If you call yourself bad with money, you will keep proving that it's true. If you call yourself not leadership material, you will keep shrinking back whenever leadership is required. Be careful with how you label yourself, with what becomes identity. Because once something becomes identity, you don't just experience it, you protect it, you hold on to it, it becomes normal. You start defending your limitations as if they're part of you. That's why changing your story is so uncomfortable. The brain would rather be uncomfortable and right and secure in something that is consistent. It's not just changing a thought, it's questioning a familiar identity. The third step is to trace the origin of the story, not because we want to just wallow in the past. And this isn't therapy, but look, it helps you stop treating the story like the universal truth. Most of these narratives came from somewhere. Usual suspects, parents, teachers, past relationship, maybe a humiliating moment or a bad boss, a time you got laughed at, a time you rejected, a time you tried and it went badly, maybe the playground. It'd be anyone, a combination of those things. Somewhere along the line, you made a meaning. You decided, I need to be perfect to be loved, for example. Or it's safer not to stand out. Or people leave when I'm honest, or I have to earn my place, or I'm only valuable when I'm useful. That decision may have helped you survive them. But surviving and thriving are not the same thing. A story that protected you at 12 years old might now be quietly running your leadership at 38. So ask yourself, where did I first learn this? Not to excuse it or to beat yourself up with it, but to loosen its grip on you. Because once you can see that the story was learned, you can stop acting it's like who you're going to be for the rest of your life. Now, once you've found your story, how do you change it? Well, this is where a lot of people, unfortunately, go wrong because they try to replace it with some big dramatic statement that, quite frankly, they don't believe. They go from, I'm not enough, to I'm unstoppable. And their brain quite rightly goes, yeah, no, you're not. So don't do that. Build a believable bridge. Move from destructive story to a version of the truth that you really believe in. So if your old story was, I always mess things up, the bridge might be, I've made mistakes before, but I also learn and recover. If your story is, I'm not a confident leader, the bridge might be, I'm learning to lead with clarity and steadiness. If your story is, I'm bad with money, the bridge might be, I've been avoiding money, but I can learn to handle it better. You're not trying to hypnotize yourself. You're trying to build a truer narrative that actually serves you. One that creates movement towards something positive rather than just feeling paralyzed. Then you have to reinforce the new story with evidence. And this is a really crucial part. And if you skip this, it goes wrong. You want a new identity without the behavior, without the evidence, it doesn't work. Your brain believes evidence more than intention. So if you want a new story, you need to behave in small ways that support it, small ways, and then build it over time. Just do it repeatedly. If you want the story, I am someone who can handle hard conversations, you're going to have them at some point. Not 1,000, one. And then the next one, the next one. If you want the story to be, I am someone who backs myself, then make one decision without asking 5 people to approve it. If you want the story, I can earn more, then ask for the raise, ask for the particular rate and send the proposal, apply for the bigger role, or finally put your prices up. The story changes through repeated proof. That's why confidence is not some magic elixir. I like to say it is, but it's not in how you build it. It is built brick by brick, choice by choice, piece of evidence by piece of evidence. I also want you to start using a question that I think is one of the most useful ones in this area, which is, what would the person I want to become do here? Not the perfect person or the fantasy version, the person I'm becoming, the person I want to become. That question helps you step out of the old narrative without pretending to be somebody else. It closes the gap between identity and action. You're in a meeting and you want to stay quiet. What would the person I'm becoming, or I want to become, do? They'd speak up. You're pricing your work and you feel yourself want to undercharge. What would the person that you want to become, what would they do here? They hold the rates. They know their value. Maybe you're about to apologize for simply existing again. What would the ideal person, ideal version of you do? Just breathe and speak plainly. And these micro piece of evidence, it's how the identity starts to move. Not through one big massive breakthrough, through lots and lots of small moments where you stop acting from the old story and start rehearsing the new one. And let me say something else here that matters as well. You need to pay attention to how you talk to yourself and the stories that you're saying, because a lot of people are trying to build confidence with an inner voice that is really a form of a bully. The way you speak to yourself either reinforces the old story or supports the new one. If your internal voice is constantly saying to you, you idiots, you messed this up again, you always do this, no wonder they don't take you seriously, no wonder they don't respect you, then don't act surprised when your confidence stays low. That voice is not helping you improve. It is keeping you trapped in a form of identity shame. You need a voice that is honest, but serves you, is useful, is uplifting. One that can say, that didn't go brilliantly, but let's learn from it. Or, yes, you're avoiding this because you're scared. Now go and do it anyway. Or, that fear is old. It doesn't get to make the decision. That is not fluffy self-talk. That is leadership. It's self-leadership. And without self-leadership, you will struggle to lead anybody else well. Now, let me talk about for a moment the spillover effect, because this is where the work becomes worth it. When your story changes, it does genuinely affect everything. I've seen it again and again and again. And as a leader, you stop performing and start leading from a real place of calmness. You stop over-explaining, asking for permission just to have a view. You stop kind of falling apart every time somebody disagrees with you. In relationships, you become easier to be close to because you stop filtering yourself so heavily. You ask for what you need and you stop reading everything as a rejection. You stop making your partner responsible for fixing your past identity wounds. And as a friend, you stop shifting who you are just to stay liked. You become much more real, which actually means your relationships get a lot better, not worse, despite your fears. And in your career, this matters hugely because money follows value, yes, but it also follows confidence. And we're not talking about loud, fake confidence here. Real self-trust that kind of lets you ask and negotiate and pitch and lead and decide and hold your ground. Plenty of capable people are earning less than they should do because their story still stays as, don't ask, don't be too much, don't risk it, don't risk rejection. Stay safe. Change the story, and you often change the ceiling. So here's what I challenge you to do for this week. Take one area of your life, leadership, relationships, career, money, friendship. Pick one area that's really important to you. Write down the answer to these 4 questions. Number 1, what pattern keeps repeating here? Number 2, what story about myself would make that pattern make sense? Number 3, where did I first learn that story? And number 4, what is a more truthful, useful story that I want to believe and practice instead? And then choose one action this week that supports the new story. Just one, not a total reinvention. one move or conversation or boundary or ask or moment of honesty, one brave decision. And then write down what that action proves about you. This is how confidence is built. Not by wanting to feel different, but by acting in ways that give you new evidence about who you are. And I'll leave you with this. The story in your head is not small. It is shaping your life whether you notice it or not. It's shaping how much you earn, how you lead, what you tolerate, how you speak, how you love, and what you believe you deserve. So stop treating it like it's just background noise, something to be pushed away. Listen to it, question it, rewrite it. Because when the story changes, behavior changes. When behavior changes, results change. And when results change, life changes too. That's all for today. If you want to work with me to change the story underneath your confidence so you stop being limited by old labels and start leading, earning and living a stronger identity, head to joshsuttoncoaching.com to find out more. I'm your coach, Josh Sutton. Let's talk confidence.